Okay, so Unit 3, Lesson 2, we're going to be talking about graphing quadratic equations. So first off, you need to know that when a graph opens up, that means that A, or your multiplier, is positive, and that means that you have a minimum point. When the graph opens down, it means that A is negative and you have a maximum point. So just keep that in mind. That's our basic vocabulary about graphing quadratic functions. Now let's go down. First off, you need to find the vertex. So you need to rewrite your standard form into vertex form. And your vertex form is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Now, your multiplier is your a. Your vertex is h and k, or x and y. So let's start. So first off, what you're going to do is you're going to look here. Look at example number 1. This is already put in vertex form for you, so you don't need to do anything. It's already in vertex form. So let's find the vertex and the multiplier. So let's go to example number 1. Now, this is my formula. This was my equation. Y equals 2x minus 3 squared minus 5. So my vertex is at 3, negative 5. And the reason why it's at 3 is because we switch the sign here on x. So 3, negative 5. And my multiplier is 2. A, right here, this is your multiplier. So you have a multiplier of 2. So the way that you graph this is you set up a t-chart. And the numbers that you always are going to start with are 1 and 2. So started our t-chart, x and y, and we start with 1 and 2. Now you always have to square 1 and 2. So 1 squared is 1 and 2 squared. Oh, this 2 squared should have been 4. So just go ahead and change that to 4. Now what you're going to do is you have to multiply both of these numbers by your multiplier. So 2. So 1 times 2 is 2, and this should have been 4 times 2, and this should have been 8. So you're going to go over, you're going to start at your vertex, which is at 3, negative 5. So 3, negative 5. You're going to go over 1, up 2, and over 1, up 2. Then you're going to go over 2, so over 2, and you're going to go up 8, which should have been up here, and then over 2, up 8, which should have been up here, and then you would just go ahead and connect down. All right, so let's look at example number 2. Now, if you notice with example number 2, it's actually in standard form. So you actually need to turn that in to the vertex form. So how do we do that? So let's look. Example number 2. Here's our equation. Y equals 2x squared minus 8x plus 6. So the first thing you do to put this into vertex form is you subtract 6 from both sides, and you get y minus 6 is 2x squared minus 8x. Now you want your multiplier on the outside, so to do that you have to divide by 2. So we went ahead and we divided by 2. So we have y minus 6 equals, we pull our 2 on the outside, x squared minus 4x. Okay, so it's minus 4x because negative 8 divided by 2 is a negative 4x. Then you're going to take half of negative 4. So negative 4 divided by 2 equals a negative 2 squared, which equals a 4. So we add 4 to this side and we add 4 to this side. Then you have to multiply the left side. You have to remember to multiply that by your multiplier. So 4 times 2 is 8. So y minus 6 plus 8 equals 2 times x squared minus 4x plus 4, and you end your parentheses. We go ahead, let's look on our left side, just go ahead and combine like terms. So negative 6 plus 8 is a positive 2. So y plus 2 equals 2 times x minus 2, end parentheses, times x minus 2, close parentheses. Now what we did here was we completed the square from this equation up here. So now we can rewrite this. We have y equals, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to subtract 2 from both sides because we want to end up with y equals. So y equals 2 times x minus 2 squared minus 2. So our vertex is at 2, negative 2, because this is vertex form. We just now solved and put it into vertex form. So your vertex is 2, negative 2. So right here, vertex is 2, negative 2. Now we need to put this in, we need to find our x-intercepts. And the way that we find our x-intercept is we want x by itself. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna substitute a 0 in for y. So I did that right here. You can look over here, I started. So 0 equals 2 times x minus 2 squared minus 2. So I took this equation and I plugged in a 0 for y. Then we're going to add 2 to both sides. So I have 2 equals 2 times x minus 2 squared. And then now to get rid of this 2 here, we're going to divide by 2. So divide by 2. And then you see this arrow, I went ahead and I rewrote up here. So I get 1, because 2 divided by 2 is 1, equals x minus 2. Okay? So then this is, so this is 1 equals, okay. So then what you're going to do is you're going to find the square root. So you square root it, you square root from both sides, and we get the square root of 1 equals, and then the square root and your squared, they cross themselves out, x minus 2. And the square root of 1 is just 1. So 1 equals x minus 2. Now remember, this is a positive, negative 1. So what we have is we have a positive 1 and a negative. So this is 1. So plus 2, x is 3. And over here we've got a negative 1, because remember this 1 can be positive or negative. So negative 1 equals x minus 2. So you add 2 to both sides. And 2 plus a negative 1 is a negative 1 equals x. So your x-intercepts are 3, negative 1. Okay? All right. So let's look at example number 3. Now, example number 3, actually let's go ahead and look down at example number 4. Okay. So we have, where is that one? Here we go. So example number 4, your equation is y equals a negative 2x squared plus 4x plus 1. So negative 2x squared minus 4x plus 2. Oh, that's not the right equation, sorry. Here's the right equation. So y equals a negative 2x squared plus 4x plus 1. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So subtract 1 and subtract 1. So we have y minus 1 equals a negative 2x squared plus 4x. Now again, we want to pull this negative 2, this is your multiplier, we want to pull it to the outside. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to divide by a negative 2. So you have y minus 1 equals a negative 2, start parentheses, x squared minus 2x plus 1. Because 4 divided by a negative 2 is a negative 2. And then you're going to take a negative 2, you're going to divide by 2, which gives you a negative 1. You're going to square that, which is 1. So you're going to add 1 to both sides. Now remember, the 1 that you add to the left side, you have to multiply by your multiplier, which is a negative 2. So you're going to have y minus 1 minus 2 equals a negative 2, start parentheses, x squared minus 2x plus 1, end parentheses. So a negative 1 minus 2, so that becomes a positive, you add your negative. So y minus 3 equals a negative 2, and here we're going to complete the square. So both, we put 2 parentheses, and we have x minus 1, x minus 1. So we have y minus 3 equals a negative 2, x minus 1 squared. Now we want to get y by itself, so we add 3 to both sides, and we get y equals a negative 2, and begin parentheses, x minus 1 squared plus 3. So your vertex is at 1, 3. So your vertex is at 1, 3. Now we need to find our x-intercepts. So remember, we want x by itself, so we substitute a 0 in for y. So 0 equals a negative 2, x minus 1 squared plus 3. So all we're going to do is we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. We get a negative 3 equals a negative 2. times x minus 1 squared. So we're going to divide by a negative 2 from both sides, and we get a positive 3/2 equals x minus 1 squared. To get rid of your square, you have to square root. So square root by both sides, get rid of your square, and you get the square root of 3/2 equals x minus 1. Now remember, you can't have a fraction underneath your radical, so you have to radicalize it. So you have to multiply by your square root of 2 times the square root of 2, which gives you plus or minus the square root of 6 over 2, which equals x minus 1. Then what you're going to do, this should have been 1, so you're going to add 1 to both sides, and your x-intercepts are plus or minus the square root of 6 over 2, and this should have been plus 1. Okay? All right, so let's look here at example number 5. Now, example number 5, we've got a negative 1/2 times x plus 3 squared plus 4. So first off, this equation is in vertex form, so you aren't going to switch it into standard form. You're not going to solve for vertex form because it's already in vertex form. So your vertex is at a negative 3, 4. So your vertex is at a negative 3, 4. To find your x-intercepts, you make y equal to 0. So 0 equals a negative 1/2 times x plus 3 squared plus 4. So you're going to subtract 4 from both sides, and you get negative 4 equals a negative 1/2 times x plus 3 squared. To get rid of this negative 1/2, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is a negative 2 over 1, or just a negative 2. So you multiply by a negative 2. So you get 8 equals x plus 3 squared. Then you go ahead, you square root both sides, and here we have to reduce 8. So the 8 becomes 4 times 2, and the 4 is 2 times 2, so you just have 2 square root of 2 plus or minus equals x plus 3. You subtract 3 from both sides, and you get a negative 3 plus or minus 2 square root of 2, and that is your x-intercept. Now to graph, you go ahead, you start your t-chart. The two numbers we always use are 1 and 2. We square both the numbers, and we get 1 and we get 4. Now, remember, you have to multiply by the multiplier, so let's go back up. Our multiplier is a negative 1/2. So we multiply 1 by a negative 1/2, and you get a negative 1.5. You multiply your 4 by a negative 1/2, and you get negative 4.5. So we started our vertex, which is negative 3, 4. So negative 3, 4, we go over 1, down 1.5, over 1, down 1.5. Then we go over 2, and we go down 4.5, and over 2, down 4.5, and just connect your dots so it looks like a parabola. Okay, and then last one, we're going to do example number 6. So here we go. Example number 6, we have y equals 3 times x minus 1 squared plus 8. Again, this is already in vertex form, so do not change anything. Okay, you need to know the difference between standard form and vertex form. So if it's in vertex form, we can automatically find our vertex. So our vertex is at 1, 8. So our vertex is at 1, 8. To find our x-intercept, we substitute 0 in for y. So 0 equals 3 times x minus 1 squared plus 8. We subtract 8 from both sides, and you get a negative 8 equals 3 times x minus 1 squared. We divide by 3, so we go ahead, divide by 3, and we get a negative 8/3 equals x minus 1 squared. To get rid of your square, you square root from both sides, and you get the square root of a negative 8/3 equals x minus 1. Now remember, you can't have a fraction underneath your radical, and you also can't have a negative. So you're going to actually pull out your I, and you're also going to radicalize this. So multiply by the square root of 3 divided by the square root of 3. So you have 8 times 3, which is 24, so the square root of 24 divided by 3, and bring out your I. So you have plus or minus I square root of 24 over 3 equals x minus 1. You add 1 to both sides, and you get 1 plus or minus I square root of 24 over 3, which is your x